13 Questions by Man Transcending. Manhood in the Digital Age.
Welcome back to another episode of 13 Questions. This time we are joined by Chase Tolleson. But before we get into the interview portion of the episode, Adam is with me as always. Adam, how are you?
I am doing amazing, Bill. How are you?
Can't complain, especially after talking to Chase. These Mark England referrals, like the caliber of people that we were able to interview and talk because Mark reached out for us is just, it's really it's a breath of fresh air. I just got done telling Chase that, and that it's just very, very empowering, I guess, even though empowerment comes from within. But it's nice to see the universe reflecting that back to me anyway.
Well, much like we spoke with our guest, you are a reflection of the people that you surround yourself with. It's an absolute reflection of the group of people that he's recommended and all the, the intertwinings and ties and connections between them. So, yeah, they just seem to be just overall enlifting episodes.
Pun intended, right? Enlifted. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was a great episode, and you had just made a comment about everything being connected, and I had a super. Oh yeah, we were talking about how your circle, right? Your circle of friends, like your 5 closest people that you hang out with become, or they have the most influence on you or whatever. But could you possibly substitute that with podcasts? Like instead of people, like the 5 top podcasts that you listen to?
I still refer to Joe Rogan as my friend or Joe because I've listened to him on so many episodes that, yeah, I think you do. In the same way that if you hang out around enough of your friends, there's a milieu, this like, cadence and rhythm and way that you say things and enunciations, and you start to sync up and share thoughts. I mean, the only difference between that person being in the room with you and you hearing those vibrations or seeing them on TV, it's the interaction between them. But, for most really good conversations that you're sitting and eating coffee around, a table with friends, you're not always talking. So, yeah, I mean, you're like 80% there, and you do. The only weird thing about it is when you meet Joe or whoever the other person is, you know way more about them and understand them in a way that they don't understand about you. So you feel you know them when they're like, who that?
Yeah, I definitely got that feeling when I went to Contact at the Cabin last spring. I got to meet Darren, and yeah, so I think that the friend analogy, it reminds me of a meme. I think it's a Donnie Darko meme. Donnie Darko? That's a movie, right? Yeah. Who's in that? Just Jake Gyllenhaal or something? Anyway, he's talking to his mom, and the caption says, "Oh, I think I made a new friend today." And his mom's like, "Is it a friend or another podcast host?" And he's like, "Oh, it's." And the next slide is this, sad face or whatever, podcast host, whatever, because that's a meme that requires a little bit of cultural context to get, but whatever.
Let me put it back into perspective. You used to be able to call a pen pal a friend, somebody that you connected with. Now you got a podcast, you get to listen to their voice, you get to interact with them directly, send them messages, communicate, influence the work. Your editing is going to improve because of the listeners, Bill, because you have headphones that you can now hear more modular sounds on. There is a deeper level to this. So if our parents could say pen pals are friends, and God damn it, you can be our friend too. You just got to make a connection somehow.
Yeah, somehow. Anyhow, speaking of headphones, let's get into the gratitude jingle, dude. I was going to talk about that for mine this episode.
Gratitude, 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 oh gratitude. Gratitude, 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 oh gratitude.
mentioned headphones, and we were able to upgrade my pair of headphones with just show donations, which is a first for 13 questions. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that. Thank you for everybody that is out there listening and spreading the show. And yeah, we were able to purchase the Sony MDR 7506 professional large diaphragm headphones recently for me to use with my mixer, which was donated by friend of the show Andreas Lopez. So it's nice to see that everything's starting to come together a little bit. You know, it's heartwarming. And so far, you know, the headphones are great. I was using, I don't know, Rig is the other headphone brand is more for gaming, I guess. And these are much more studio quality, professional grade. The sound, like the way I'm able to hear my own voice now is it makes me more cognizant of the way I speak, which will help the podcast and that later on down the road, of course, I think.
Oh, yeah. Listen, these are the same headphones that Kevin Smith is using to monitor on the set that Howard Stern, I don't know if he's still using them, uses for himself and guests. They are incredibly high quality, really good, well-priced headphones. And they are going to give you the ability to edit in a way that you didn't before. And especially if there's, you know, people out there that are listening on, you know, better equipment or have a pair of headphones that, you know, it may produce a sound that your other headphones were incapable of you hearing. So there can be background sound that you just didn't even know was there. Plus, it's just going to give you a cleaner, easier edit. And then on the flip side, when you go to listen to music, be selfish, it's going to sound amazing.
Yeah, I'm super excited. These just showed up the other day, so it was the first time that I'm able to use them. So I'm super excited to explore more with these. We were able to purchase these with, we had one gratitude jar donation, which we will get to talk about more later, and which wasn't quite enough to push us over the edge of being able to purchase the headphones, but we got a payout sent to us from Mystical Wares because we do have an affiliate link and account with them, which is Derek Condit's online store, mysticalwares.com, and that gave us the extra, I don't know, $3 or $4 that I needed to pay to get the headphones. So it was lots of little pieces coming together all at once. It made it happen, you know. So it's just, you know, like I said, super heartwarming and exciting, and yeah, just exciting. I'm super grateful for that. So that was mine. That's what I wanted to talk about for this episode. Did you have one on your mind by chance?
I did. Mine is very simple. It's just video, and like, I guess that would be just information access, but it's seeing amazing things that happen that should not take place. I was watching a video on cycling, and it was just crazy events that happened during, you know, cycling competitions. And this guy, during one of these events, his bike was hit by one of the motorbikes that was there as part of the race and damaged his bike. He couldn't race. He's pissed off, so he grabs the thing, he like throws it on the ground. There's a fan that has a bicycle standing right there, goes, take it, he gets on it, runs, comes in second place, and it was a series of races. He ends up placing overall and winning it the next day. And it just turns out that the guy who was there just happened to have, made by the same company, the exact same frame, the same gear system and ratio, the same tire sizes. The bike was essentially set up exactly the same with a different color of paint. And just right there at that right time, that person making the decision going, no, this is yours, take it. So it is amazing because when you get to see those things happen and those things line up, it lets you know that stuff really does happen a lot more in the world. And it's just beautiful being able to like codify it into a reality, and not just a friend of a friend or my friend saw, or that one time in my life. It's like, oh no, this and this and this and this and this and this and this, and these are regular things that we just don't think are. So I'm grateful for that. Grateful for the ability to record and pull the, I mean, it's wisdom, right? It is the knowledge that miracle and things where the chances of it happening are so outside anything that you could compute, but they do, and there's proof.
Yeah, and we can track these things, like you said, codify it, like, and and at that point it becomes, I don't know, it becomes it's because it's never expected, right? Because the synchronicities that we experience, that we've talked about, or the guy just having the exact same bike, like these, the more that these instances occur, like we can recognize a pattern, right? And when we start to recognize patterns, and that goes into, that's just the first step, right?
Oh, that's the ultimate step in hacking reality. The world is cycles and seasons, and so you want to hack growing like plants. You want to get really good at it. You got to understand the seasons. You got to understand the cycles. You got to understand the systems, the weather, just the entire ecosystem along with it. And that goes with every single aspect of life. Culture has cycles. People have cycles. They have hormonal cycles, daily cycles, sleep cycles. There's fads that come in, bell bottoms come and go, color fads come and go. And if you just start looking at history, and why does history repeat itself? Because, eventually people want to go back to, I don't know, that's not the right way to put it. History just does. If you can get ahead and start seeing cycles and seeing things within your own life, you can start to go, I've seen this before. I understand where this is going. And then you're hacking reality. You're seeing a future from looking at the past. It is a true as above, so below.
Yeah, hacking reality, like using a cheat code. Our guest, Chase.
Don't think that the universe is out to get you. It is conspiring for you. There is an ammo drop populating somewhere. I had, and it was very interesting. I never quite understood the simulation theory until having the understanding that, simulation, it's not, this is an exact computer simulation, Neo, here is the thing you are in a chip, this is Tron. But if you take the conceptual idea that, look, the universe is going to provide. And in the same way that a video game will manifest something that is needed based on the requirements of the system, based on your character's position and need, that there is something true to our reality. That if you, start looking for, the answers and trying to find those things and asking the questions, that the simulation, this thing, whatever this is, that in the same way that you fertilize the ground, you'll get better, riper fruit. You can do the same thing by fertilizing with your thoughts and, manifesting these just better or more attainable outcomes. Doesn't mean they're always going to be there. Anyways, I'm off the rails, Bill, and I don't know where I'm going. You got to save me.
Yeah, the cheat code, you said a hacking reality, having a cheat code. We alluded to simulation assumptionism in the episode, and I would like to think that the gratitude jar working spell that we've started over the last few episodes is kind of like a cheat code, because we're quantumly entangling ourselves and other entities which have this understanding of of how,
if there's power to emotion working in the world, you're putting out that form of gratitude.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, is gratitude, because once you send that, you send out, and then you're gonna get it back tenfold. Like what you send out, you get returned back to you. So, but just to explain the gratitude jar real quick, it is a jar in which anybody who supports the show monetarily with a one-time or recurring donation of any amount, so it could be just $1 once, right? You get your name written in purple ink, and it gets added to this 6-cup mason jar I have next to me by my computer, which is also surrounded by a bunch of semi-precious and precious stones. Mostly semi-precious, because I don't have a bunch of gold and silver laying around. But what I do have, and what I do wanted to kind of highlight and talk about on this episode today, is amethyst. is one of the stones that I keep around, and that speaks to me, and that is also, if you recall, amethyst is a purple stone, so it is a stone of the purple ray. And so these stones have certain metaphysical qualities which we can tap into and take advantage of if we're aware of them, because knowing is truly half the battle, if not more than half the battle. I don't know. You could spin that maybe to something more snazzy if you want, but I did want to. So back to amethyst, I'm going to read from, I think, 2 books this time, just because I think the more sources that we have, the more validation we can take away from stuff like this, especially since it's not really talked about in the media or talked about in school, at least not in the schools I went to. But yeah, so I'm going to read from the Encyclopedia of Crystals by Judy Hall, and she says amethyst derives from the Greek word for to be intoxicated, and was worn to prevent drunkenness. Promoting love of the divine, amethyst encourages selflessness and spiritual wisdom. Opening multidimensional awareness, it enhances metaphysical abilities and is an excellent stone for meditation and scrying. Sleeping with amethyst facilitates out-of-body experiences, helps dream recall, and assists visualization. It guards against psychic attack, transmuting it into love. A natural tranquilizer, amethyst blocks geopathetic stress and negative environmental energies, harmonizing the physical, mental, and emotional bodies and linking them to the spiritual. It purifies the aura. Amethyst is helpful for people about to make the transition through death and supports coming to terms with loss. This stone has a sobering effect on overindulgence and overcomes addictions. Beneficial to the mind, it calms or stimulates as appropriate, helping to feel more focused, assisting assimilation of new ideas, and connecting cause with effect. Amethyst enhances memory and improves motivation. The stone balances emotional highs and lows. Trigonic markings and descending upside-down triangles are appearing on amethyst points, raising the vibration to an exceedingly high level. The trigonics are a race of star beings who wish to assist the consciousness shift of planet Earth and to bring peace to all, ending war. I don't know too much about that last bit about trigonic. It's the first time I've come across it in Judy's book. So once again, that was Judy Hall, and the second book is by Robert Simmons and Naisha Ashan, I believe is how you say that. And I have this page bookmarked. We're just going to read from Robert just to keep this nice and short as possible. So once again, this is the Book of Stones, Who They Are and What They Teach, revised and expanded edition by Robert Simmons. It is interesting to see how many of the spiritual properties attributed to amethyst in past centuries are similar to those which have been intuitively discovered in recent years. Indeed, it is appropriate to view amethyst as a stone of spiritual protection and purification. It can be an aid to curbing overindulgence and giving up bad habits. It can be used to assist one in quitting smoking, drinking, or drug use. It stimulates the crown chakra and is an aid to meditation, helping one to still one's thoughts and move into higher states of consciousness. It can clear one's energy field of negative influences and attachments, and can thereby facilitate the creation of an energetic, quote-unquote, shield of a field of spiritual light around the body that wards off the negativity in one's environment. I would say instead of shield there, let's substitute the word armor, and maybe we'll get into that why later. But Robert goes on to write, those familiar with the Saint Germain stories may remember the legendary violet flame of spiritual protection, which readers and disciples were urged to call upon to purge themselves of karmic baggage or illness, and to protect themselves from psychic attack. This is a direct analog of the subtle vibrational field emanated by amethyst, and it can assist one in connecting with this beneficial energy. Amethyst is an ideal stone for enhancement of one's physical environment. Placing amethyst clusters, geodes, or crystals in one's home, meditation room, car, etc., can bring the feeling that one is surrounded, protected by a bubble of light. For this reason, amethyst is an especially recommended stone for everyone from healers and psychologists to teachers and truck drivers. If one is ill, placing an amethyst specimen in one's room can help keep one's healing space clear. Wearing amethyst maintains an inner peace of one's body and energy field in a state of balance and well-being. In all cases, one is advised to clear the energies of one's amethyst pieces from time to time. The easiest method is to hold the stone under running water for a minute or less while affirming the intention for the stone to be cleared. And then he goes on to say that for spiritual protection, amethyst works well when combined with some other stones, moldavite, of which is included, and I do have a chunk of moldavite, so we'll end the stone, our little stone segment there. Maybe we'll do moldavite later. I want to get through all the stones of the purple ray first. Moldavite's green, in case you were wondering. But yes, amethyst is
usually green. I think I've seen some blue moldavite out there before, but I could be wrong. Beautiful stone.
It is. I mean, and who knows? Probably. I mean, there's new stones popping up out of the ground all the time, right? I know that pink amethyst is a relatively recent discovery. It's coming out of Brazil, and there's because you buy these books on stones. They're called encyclopedias, but you can't always find what you have just purchased written about in the book, because what you have just seen or whatever learned about at the store, stone-wise, isn't written about yet because it's such a new discovery. Nothing's been published on it, so that's exciting if you're into the stone game. But I wanted to highlight amethyst for this episode just because I know that I've been talking about Saint Germain a lot, and I've referenced the books coming out of the Saint Germain Press. So I thought amethyst would be a good a segue or an explanation of why we're choosing the color purple to work with. In the gratitude jar working, purple is the color of your crown chakra, which deals with freedom and sovereignty, which are two very important topics I think are good to highlight whenever you can. And that's kind of what we're all about on this show, I'd like to think, anyway. But and I just recently gave in the last episode we did an unboxing, and Adam got his own piece of chevron amethyst. So I just thought it would be appropriate to go ahead and explain that metaphysically.
Yeah, I need to get myself some sterling silver wire so I can craft that into a pendant.
Super cool. I've been. I don't have it on right now, but I've been wearing my Shungite pendant again recently. I know that I had made the big announcement that I was, retiring it because I'm surrounded by it all the time. But things change and circumstances change, so I'm now trying to be more mindful about wearing my Shungite pendant, which I bought through Derek Condit's store, Mystical Wares, which I've already mentioned. And I guess I'll mention the other two affiliates that we currently have, and that is Aura Cacao. And Aura Cacao is ran by Jonas Ketterle, which has been a past guest. Definitely go check out that episode. And the cacao is ceremonial grade. So this isn't just your normal everyday cup of hot chocolate, folks. This is ceremonial grade cacao. It's really good. Tons of flavor. Not tons, but his flavor expansion has increased. So it's super, super beneficial for working with the heart energies, your heart chakra area. So definitely check that out. And our last affiliate is with Mark Sloan and the Red Light Therapy. So all those links are on the website.
Love yourself, support the show. We're simple here. It goes right back into making the show better and upgrading our equipment and just being better at what we can do. Bill and I both truly believe in this. So, whatever value you get from this, believe me, it's reflected back, and we're incredibly grateful for it. So thank you. And like I said before, reach out to us, become a friend of the show. If you have ideas, questions, guests, comments, anything, hit us up in the email, hit us up on the Discord. Check us out at 13questionspodcast.com.
And with that, this is 13 Questions with Chase Tolleson. Question number 1. What was the best advice ever given to you, and would you modify it at all today?
Best advice ever given to me was from my father. And it was, if you ever let anyone get to you, they've already won. And with what I know about projections and words and even the sentiment behind that statement, I would modify it. To say that they've already won implies that there's a battle there, that other people are trying to get to us, that to give them control lets them win a war. And I would flip it on its head, take them out of it. And to be in control of ourselves is ultimate freedom. Take the projection of other people getting to us, other people winning, all the way out of it. Take that thought process out of it. Our reticular activating system won't even focus on the struggle that is them winning or us losing. Just to be in control of ourselves is ultimate freedom.
Yeah, that's kind of synchronistic in that we have been exploring some a new working, I guess we're calling it the gratitude jar. And when the I guess the theme behind it is freedom and sovereignty, and we have these colors purple and pink and green that are kind of in our new logos that we had designed. So like highlighting just the sovereignty and the freedom aspect is kind of a little synchro there. But I love that the modifying part of that of your answer. Not too many guests have a modification, but this one is pretty freaking cool because you're taking, like you're saying, the us versus them mentality out of it. And I think that's beautiful. Makes it so less angsty, I guess is a word for it.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. Thank you. It's it gives us our power back, because even by heading into it with that view of, if we let them get to me, then they already won. Like, we're already looking for conflict. So, yeah.
Question number 2. What do you willfully ignore?
And I sat with this one for a bit, because there's a decent amount that I willfully ignore, or that I put my attention elsewhere. To say that it's any one specific thing, I willfully ignore, to answer the question directly, anything that doesn't apply to my journey, to moving me forward in life. I put my where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And Friedrich Nietzsche said it as, what you look at is what you see. So what I willfully ignore is anything that's going to suck my energy away from my journey. And I choose to look at things that will move me forward, that will aim with growth, that will support my family, and that will bring me to where I want to go in life. So I willfully ignore anything that's going to hold me still or drag me backwards. It's quite as simple as that. If somebody is talking and gossiping about other people, if somebody is talking about how bad this thing is that happened that really has no effect on my life, if somebody is talking, just complaining in general about something that is completely inconsequential, I'm going to very much so willfully ignore that.
Yeah, that reminds me, I was just listening to a podcast that Jim Brewer does. He came out with a comedy special not too long ago called somebody had to say it. Something along those lines. And he was saying that a lot of it was very well received. I would recommend that anybody check it out. But he was saying how focusing on these distractions suck. He said the literal word "suck" like a vacuum, and made made that all the noise, and it was demonstrator trying to get the point across of people are paying attention to these areas in their life that aren't really impacting them. They're letting their energy get sucked away and distracted from paying attention to what's in front of them right now, and that's their journey, right?
Yeah, 100%. That is. And so many people go through life and that's the normal thing. Like, well, my boss is a dick and traffic sucked today and my wife's nagging me and this and that. And to fine tune this answer, what I willfully ignore is problems and I look for solutions. And people are going through life wanting to see the problems, even in things that have no impact on their life.
Yeah, and if you're focusing on those things that don't have any impact in your life, you're not living your life. You're just letting it slip on by. And one of these days you're going to look back and be like, oh, where has the time gone? As opposed to, if you're in the moment, you're going to look back and say, well, look at all I've done, right? Look at all the impact I've made.
100%. 100%.
And just so I get the comedy special right, Jim Brewer's Somebody Had to Say It. So just for the record, it's called Somebody Had to Say It.
Cool. I'm going to go check that out after this.
Yeah. It seemed like it was very cathartic for him to you can tell that he was holding back a lot of this, this energy throughout the last 2 years, I would say specifically, maybe longer, but yeah.
Probably longer.
Yeah.
A lot of people hold stuff in for a long time. So here's a fun thing. Little before you get onto the book question. What a lot of people ignore is the thing that'll actually move them forward. So, and they're holding on to it and they don't realize they're holding on to it. They're ignoring things from their past, things that have come up, whether you want to call them traumas or just events. They actively had an impact on their limbic system and on their emotional body. And people ignore these things or they hold on to them and it has a massive impact. Okay, now let's say something big happens in their life and they go, oh, this really, really affected me. And all of a sudden they can't get over it. Like a sudden loss in the family or they lose their job and they just can't see the other side of it. Well, often what's happening is they haven't processed their childhood, the divorce, the family member they lost when they were a teenager, whatever it be. And all of that emotional damage is still there under the surface and they buried it. And now you get this massive event that comes up and it pulls all of those feelings to the surface. And to effectively deal with that event, you'd have to go back and deal with everything else. But that's scary because your inner child is like, oh, wait, no, we don't want to look at those. So fun sidebar.
Yeah, that is kind of a paradox how we're holding on to something but ignoring it at the same time. Like we're holding on to it by not addressing it, but sometimes we're not even aware of something, of an issue or how to identify it, which is where having a coach comes in handy sometimes, and how to, reauthorize that experience in the past. But have you heard of the term that the triggers are our guides?
Yeah, this is the second time this week that I've heard that term.
Okay. That's just something that popped in my head because I've seen it floating around on memes or something before, and it just kind of makes sense. I mean, if something bothers you, you should probably go find out why, right?
Yeah. I mean, the method I use with clients is like, okay, now if we're talking about this, and one of my favorite examples that I've used for years is when I owned my gym, a female client came to me and she's like, hey, I want a Chase psychology session. I was like, I don't think we can call it that, but yeah, we can sit down and chat. And she wanted to talk about nutrition. And she would snack at night and get this anxious feeling. And I'm like, okay, when's the earliest time you can remember feeling that anxious feeling? And the earliest time is paramount here because that's the root. It's what's been creating these patterns. She's like, oh, when I was 12 and my mom wanted me to make cheerlead and have a certain body type. And that one right there was creating this subconscious stir because she had never actually addressed it. So we took that memory, we dissected it, we looked through it. We looked at how she was looking at it, changed her perspective on it. And all of a sudden, she had an easier time not snacking at night because she went back to the root of this anxious feeling and pulled that root out.
Yeah, the uncovering past trauma and reintegrating it, not trauma, I don't know, you can go into labels or whatever, but these disharmonic patterns within our energy field, they're kind of just hanging out in space. Like if we've talked about on the show before biofield tuning and how our body aura projects 6 feet out in front of us on either side, and it starts from our gestation and moves inward to the present moment. And within this record of life is where we find these pockets of icky energy that are able to be identified using tuning forks and some other modalities. And at the end of the day, the method or the reason behind doing the sound healing is to click and drag, is what Eileen Day McCusick calls it. And in her kind of explanation of it, she's kind of been pioneering this modality, but the clicking and dragging like you would a computer mouse, and you just kind of pull this energy back into the present, the moment in your subtle energy body, which is the closest of your energy field. And by doing that and kind of talking over your talking through your issues or anything that you identify along the way, like is absolutely helpful if you can identify that and reintegrate it, like I said. But it just reminds me of the whole biofield tuning. Are you familiar with any of that?
By the sound of it, you're more familiar. I've seen stuff about it. I love sound healing. I mean, I know we're audio only, and on screen here you can see I have sound bowls behind me. I have a nicer crystal bowl down next to my desk here. I've seen it. I have less breadth of knowledge of it than what you seem to possess.
Yeah, it's definitely something worth checking out. I found a local practitioner in town through Eileen's website, but I first heard about, I don't forget where it's been a long time, but I've been seeing this lady for about 2 years now. But what was it? Oh, Chance Garton, past guest Chance Garton, actually does biofield tuning sessions remotely. So, and I've done one with him, and I've had benefits from it. So, just maybe something the listeners want to look into, something to get a little bit more benefit out of. And so I have a few sound bowls, but I don't really do much with them. How do you use them in your practice?
So these are mostly for my in-person clients. I'm a fitness guy, I'm a mindset guy, and I also do some plant medicine work. So those come in more so there. I have from my face away on the screen right there, we have a heart bowl, a root bowl, third eye, and then crown. And then I have a big third eye bowl down on the floor here. So it depends, and if I'm helping someone, even if we're just meditating and we want to tap in, then we're okay, cool. Let's get into that third eye and that crown, and we're going to play those and help that frequency to pull that piece of them back from the field, like you were talking. And if an experience gets too rough, if they want to come back down, if it's the end of a meditation, cool. Now we're going to play that root bowl and we're going to get grounded again. So that's how I integrate them. That heart bowl will get used for me personally if there's family things going on, if it's just, like, cool, let's come in here, sit with the heart bowl and play it.
That's awesome. I love coming across and discovering and meeting these coaches and people like you that integrate all these different types of modalities, because it is truly holistic, I think. And you mentioned nutrition earlier. I mean, it's a whole, mind, heart, spirit approach, which is awesome. I think it's what we need, and a lot of people need right now.
Thank you. Yeah, it's everything is everything.
Question number 3. What book has been most influential on your life, and why?
Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. And I read it first when I was 22. I'm currently reading it for the second time. I had a lot of light bulbs in it when I was 22. I'm picking up different things now at 34, going through it. She wrote it in the 50s. And, when I was 22, it would have been 2000, or no, I was 22. So 2010, 2011. And objectivism. I have a quote from Atlas Shrugged tattooed on my ribs. And it's not that I don't suffer. It's that I know the unimportance of suffering. I know that pain is to be fought and thrown aside, not to be accepted as part of one's soul and as a permanent scar across one's view of existence. And to sum up why it's been the most influential in my book in my life, I mean, that right there, for all the mindset work that I do with my clients, that I have picked up in the language game, using words as magic, and yeah, that statement focuses on the pain. It says not, it talks about things that we don't want to do and uses those words that paint a cool. The idea is still there that pain is a thing, but when we dive into it, we can feel it all the way through and then leave it where it's supposed to lie. And having that reminder over and over again, regardless of the other lessons in that book and whether people choose to ascribe to I know that there are certain political leanings that like Atlas Shrugged more than others, but there's philosophical things in there for me that make sense. And that being the biggest thing that I've pulled from it. And it really helped to tack on to, the best advice given to me from earlier, that we can take what we want out of life and leave other things where it's supposed to lie. And we get to choose our perception of how we move through it.
So what does that look like when dealing with like physical pain? Like, I don't know, because it just seems that it's something a lot of people struggle with. I'm up in Michigan, so we have recreational and medicinal cannabis. So, and I know personally a number of people that suffer from pain and have used cannabis successfully to mitigate that. But as like not needing it in order to learn a lesson, is that kind of what you're taking away from the book? Or
I love that question. And for ultra clarity, like that quote was in the middle of talking about emotional and spiritual pain. And if we're talking about physical pain, by and large, for a lot of people, barring things like getting your arm cut off, is an emotional response. There's people that will blow their back out and herniate a disc, and they're in bed for a week because they just can't. They don't know how they're ever going to get over it or keep moving. There's other people, or the same people later on after they frame this differently, who herniate that another disc and they know what happened. And it's the same thing. It's impacting a nerve the same way. They crawl over the edge of the mat when they're rolling jiu-jitsu. That's a true story. Somebody who flipped his perception around pain. Crawled over the edge of the mat, kind of moved around a little bit, found his feet, got up and out of there, and got to rehabbing himself. So when it comes to physical pain, using the idea of the quote on my ribs, if you know it's to be fought and thrown aside, and you can take those words in a couple of different ways. And when we go to physical pain, how about we lean into it and how do we heal it? Because a lot of people, if we're go to the end of that quote, accepting it as part of one's soul and as a permanent scar across one's view of existence, if we just accept that we're going to live in pain, then that doesn't sound like much fun to me at all. So look for the solution. So if that is medicinal cannabis, I'm all for that. I got a couple different fun stuff on my desk right here. I'm all for whatever the solution is, and for me, for a lot of clients of mine, that solution has been resistance training, sometimes paired with medicinal cannabis. If it's some sort of chronic pain, I've seen people go from being able to, or not being able to sleep through the night, to throwing their back out when they sneeze. And then a few months later, they're sleeping through the night. They're having big belly laughs. They can sneeze and their back doesn't hurt. So oftentimes, if we shape our perception the right way, we can find a solution to something that with a different look at it, we don't see the solution.
By resistance training, we're talking about lifting weights.
Yeah, like specifically for back pain, for that client I was talking about, we did 12 weeks of heavy and slow good mornings. So barbell on the back, bending over with a straight spine, loading the glutes and hamstrings. And she was moving, we went from sets of 12 down to sets of 6. And she would go 4 seconds on the way down and 3 seconds on the way up. So a lot of people, when they're lifting weights, are going too fast to have a good mind muscle connection and have everything firing correctly. So you slow it down and you go as heavy as you can go while staying slow and pain-free, or a pain below a 4 out of 10 on a 1 to 10 scale. And as long as that pain doesn't get any worse within 48 hours after movement, then we're heading in the right direction. There will be discomfort when we're healing from stuff. And I mean, that's physical and emotional pain. There will be discomfort when doing any sort of healing work. The question is that discomfort because you're spurring a healing process?
And this is something that you would help with a client in person?
Yeah, in person. I've written a couple of programs for those people, for people like that remotely. The pain management, physical training, though, I prefer in person.
Yeah, I do, because I am aware that your posture and how you have your body positioned while you're doing weightlifting is like, if you don't have that right, you might as well not be doing it at all, right? So being in person definitely helps to get those, tips and cues to keep your, whatever straight or whatnot.
Yeah, the only people I've written pain management programs for, and I really don't write many custom programs anymore. It's more my group program that people go through. It's more focused on identity and things like that, and it's also fitness. And the only remote programs that I wrote for pain management were people that already knew how to move, chiropractors, stuff like that. Like I've helped chiropractors fix their knee pain before, so it works. Lifting weights the right way and getting the joints. People get an achy joint and they're like, "Well, I'm just not going to use it." Or we could load it with the right patterns and get it strong. Like the only dangerous range of motion is a weak one.
What do you mean by that?
If you can strengthen most all ranges of motion, all safe ranges of motion to strengthen, you're going to be one very resilient human being.
Would you say that one do that just through yoga, or adding weights provides an added benefit just because it's quicker? The results, you get the results quicker, maybe? Or
so I've only done some yoga, and there's a certain, yes, in yoga we're expressing ranges of motion, and when you load with external forces through certain ranges of motion and actively load tissues, connective tissue, muscle, and express the joints as they can be expressed, I've personally seen that be extremely effective. Now, I'm not a yoga practitioner, so I know it can be effective. From my side of the street, strength training through full range of motion is extremely effective. And it's how I train. And anytime I walk into a yoga class, I go with someone who wants me to hop in with them. The instructor, I mean, I don't walk in looking like a bodybuilder. I'm a decently muscled guy. And then next thing you know, the instructor's like, "Oh, wow, you move really well." So, there's different ways to skin a cat. I tend to skin it with weight training through full range of motion.
Right. It's the results at the end that matter.
Yes, sir.
Question number 4. What rule do you have for yourself that you never break, and why do you think that is important?
This one, intentional breath there, because again, these are good questions. They have me thinking. And what rule do I have for myself that I never break? That I stay true to me. in the sense that I say yes to me. And this tends to, there's a trend line here from question 2 with what do I willfully ignore? Like, the rule that I have is that if it is not aligned with who I want to be, what I want to do, then I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to entertain it. So this may sound to some of the listeners like, yeah, it takes work to figure out who you are. And that may change year to year, day to day. But at the end of the day, the rule is stay true to who you are in the moment. And you'll, by and large, if you can quiet the noise in your head and your soul enough to be able to actually hear your intuition or your inner voice or your higher self or whatever you want to term it, life tends to be a lot better. That's yeah. Some people go out in the world to find themselves, others go into themselves to find their world. And when you can take that dive in, you can apply a rule of staying true to yourself. I know that some listeners, I imagine some listeners are like, well, yeah, but what's the actual rule? What do you actually do? That's my all-encompassing rule. Like, yeah, I don't have I never drink because every once in a while I drink. I don't have, that one encompasses things like being wise with alcohol, controlling my anger. I used to have a big old anger problem, and it became an anger opportunity when I fixed it. And that staying true to myself encompasses all of that.
What do you mean by an anger opportunity?
I'm glad you asked, because we can have problems or opportunities. And from having a problem with my anger, I had an opportunity to solve it. If it was only a problem, then it's only a problem. But if it becomes an opportunity, then I have an opportunity to learn how to control it. I have an opportunity to discover what's underneath it. Because anger, I'd put money that over 90% of the time, anger is not anger. It's anger masking something else. Fear, sadness, hurt, trauma. It's a misunderstanding of ourselves or of a situation. And when you have an opportunity with anger, you have an opportunity to discover what's beneath that. Is it fear of whatever it may be? Is it sadness? Is it some sort of pain? Is it a trauma from when you were 15 years old that you just haven't fully looked at yet? That's what I mean by opportunity.
It's a chance to reauthorize, to go back and redefine that, whatever area was a problem for that individual.
Yeah, 100%.
I love that you did emphasize the staying true to who you are, and the who you are part. Like it's so important to know who we are, like to have that identity part down, and because that's that everything else stems from that. To be able to say with confidence that we are, right. I am, and that's there's a lot to say. I mean, it's a short little statement, but there's a lot into it. And you mentioned, I think you mentioned briefly prayer and finding and helping that, stilling the movements around you and finding that peace and listening for that answer within you. That reminded me of a book that I just finished a few days ago called The Magic Presence by Godfrey Ray King, coming out of the Saint Germain Press. And I wrote down this quote in my diary, in my journal. It's not really a diary. Labels, right? But it says it's about prayer, and it says that Saint Germain was saying that prayer should be a quieting of the intellect and stilling of the feeling, that the personality might feel the outpouring of the mighty I Am presence and receive the response from within. So I just think that points to what we were talking about, the feeling specifically. I know it says feeling in that quote twice, and it's kind of paradoxical that we have to still the feeling that we might feel the feeling and the personality. But
That's not paradoxical at all. Wow. And my microdose is tripping my tongue up today. And so no, I don't believe that's to some, it may sound paradoxical, and I totally get it, right? It's like we have to still the noise, whether it be media, whether it be generational trauma, generational programming, even if it's subconscious, unconscious programming that happened that kept us from being in touch with that I am. And then that's the feeling that guides. That is intuition. That is, if you want to call it God, if you want whatever force you believe in, if you want to call it a higher self, an inner self, a spirit guide, whatever it is, that's it. You quiet the noise, the rest of the hoopla, and you can hear yourself.
yeah, it's fun. Try it out if you haven't yet. Anybody? It's a challenge too. That your mind is like just a little squirrel jumping from tree to tree. It's really, it takes some practice.
Oh yeah, it's my clients ask me like, what do you do for meditation? Like, do it. it's been a while now. I started with apps like Calm, and there's one app that I'm actually in now called Sync Tuition. They have 3D sounds and whatnot, and that one will help me off to other worlds sometimes. And it's a process. It's a skill. It's like building a big back squat. It's like building financial wealth. It takes time and practice and reps. And the two secrets to success in any endeavor in life: start and keep going. So if you feel like there's a lot of noise out there and you want to quiet it and learn to hear yourself or your guide or whatever the force is that you believe in, start and keep going. And the old adage of, if you don't have 20 minutes to meditate for 60 is true, because there's more noise.
Question number 5. If I were to ask your best friend, what is the one thing they would say you need to work on the most, and why?
He didn't text me back, so I have to go off the cuff on this one. But I used to be, I would say, having fun, letting loose in social situations. I'm coming around on that one. That may be one of them, and it may also be the ability to. And God, my friends talk me up so much. I got great friends. So as far as what I need to work on, like, I'd imagine my friends would say the ability to cut loose and have a good time without thinking about the philosophical implications or the way it's going to affect my recovery or things like that would be the one thing I could work on the most. Why? That's a fun one. Because they want a party buddy, because they want somebody to hang out with, and because our minds turn projections over faster than a movie reel flips film. Like, it's if we see somebody I'm having a good time when I'm out with my friends. I'm enjoying myself. Now, at the same time, and they've come around a lot on this, a lot of them, and there's still a few on the fringe are like, dude, just have a drink. Dude, do this. Dude, I'm good. I have a good time. I enjoy myself to where I want to be. Now, why do people do that? Why do people tell their friends that have stopped drinking, oh, you're no fun anymore? Well, because there's a little voice inside of them that knows that what they're doing, that likely has an idea that what they're doing isn't all that great for them. That they'd be a little happier the next day if they weren't hungover. And the why could be as simple. I may be going too deep on it. The why could be as simple as they just want their friend to have a good time with them. I tend to think there's more beneath the surface, but that's just me.
Hey, misery loves company.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said.
I appreciate how well or how deeply and how well you dissected the question with your answer. But the little comment that you made in between giving answers that your friends talk you up so much and you have awesome friends like that, to me, like spoke out, because not a lot of people, I mean, not a lot of people surround themselves with people who are supportive and or are able to do that, maybe, or maybe just are, I don't know, shy or whatever. But having at least that one confidence booster or whatever, that just that one friend in your corner that gives you confidence and talks you up. I've found it can be very helpful in in just having a better outlook on yourself if you're being hard on yourself, right?
100%. That's cultivate your circle, people. And there's the old, you are the 5 people, you are a direct reflection of the 5 people with whom you spend the most time. And speaking of projections, I tend to look at that one as a bit of a projection with how some people use it now. Like, well, I'm a reflection of who I spend my time with. So like, that's just, that's the way I am because my friends are this way, and they get stuck in that. I like to flip it on its head. The 5 people with whom you spend the most time are a direct reflection of you. They're a direct reflection of your choices, your values, your beliefs, and the action you do or do not take in the world. 5 people with whom you spend the most time are a direct reflection of how you see yourself. If you build yourself up, you are going to find people to spend time around that will also build themselves and build you up. If we dive into law of attraction and like attracts like we create our circles. Our circles don't create us. There may be a chicken or the egg argument there, and I'm here for it. If anybody wants to have that discussion, I feel like that would be a lot of fun, and that's where I'm coming from on it.
Well, or there's just 2 people in the mirror. They're both reflecting each other. Each is an influence, and can't really pull them apart.
Yeah, totally. I'm here for that idea.
Question number 6. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Life. All of it. The good, the bad, the ugly. Everything in between. Polarity creates experience. So without what turns me on creatively, on a base level is seeing what people are going through and being able to create something, especially creatively for me, is my content, my programs, my coaching. That helps me create solutions. Turns me on spiritually, 5-MeO DMT. Besides that, what turns me on spiritually? Meditation, introspection, asking the questions that people are generally too scared to ask themselves, and taking a look at what comes up that I'm sometimes too scared to ask myself. But when I do ask them, it's usually better on the other side. What turns me on emotionally? My wife. Conversations we have, the connection we have. Yeah, that's the answer.
That just the first part you said about life in general, like the caliber of answer that is from all the guests that, because it seems to be a recurring theme for all the guests that our friend Mark England has referred to the show. Like that is just the ability to have that wherewithal like every day, and to be thankful just for that. Like it is truly, it's not something that you see every, in a lot of people. So I'm just, it's a breath of fresh air to get that, because because you said you're not just the good, but you said the bad and the ugly too. And to me, that speaks of not just the good vibes, but all vibes, right? Like we're not here just for the good times. Like we have to deal with the bad things, quote unquote bad, right? And then we have to deal with the ugly things, like the things that are, our shadow side, our darker selves or whatever. Like we don't want to, it's part of life still, but so being able to do all that with joy is just something that I am, trying to cultivate in my own life too. So it's nice to have other people around that are doing the same thing.
Well, I appreciate you seeing that, brother. If we're looking to create the brightest light, then we better go looking in the darkest dark, because that light's created, as far as I concerned, that light's created out of polarity. So to be able to appreciate that brightest bright, we have to go find the darkest dark and everything in between.
Question number 7. What was the most embarrassing or humbling experience of your life?
It's an interesting one. And you touched on, Mark and the language game and those of us in the enlifted world. It's once you become, I have abracadabra in Aramaic tattooed massive on my back, because with my word I create. I believe in it. I practice it. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Getting Lifted podcast. I'm a leader in the community. So this has been a hard one for me, a difficult one, admittedly, for me to think on, because I'm like, well, what was embarrassing or humbling? Because I'm sure there was something that was embarrassing in the moment. And as I look back, I'm like, I have this ability that hampers me from answering questions like this, that I flip it and reframe it before I even get back to that humbling part. I'm like, well, here's the lesson in it, and here's what happened there. And well, yeah, that was actually a good thing. That being said, there's a couple that come up. Could be crying in fear when I was 13 years old, I think. A guy had called my dad a dick. He was right. My dad could be a dick. But my dad just went inside, and I stood up to stand up to him, and I started crying because I was scared, but I was still going to do it. That was embarrassing. My girlfriend that I had after senior year of high school, before college, after we broke up, I found out she had been sleeping with her best friend's boyfriend for like the entirety of me and her being together. So that was fun. That was a bit embarrassing. As far as humbling, though, I'd say it would have to do with being in the Navy and being told that I'm not going to get that I'm not going to get a Navy SEAL contract, even though I could have been qualified. And recognizing that I was in a system that there were forces at play that controlled what I was doing more than just my own actions.
In the sense that it was was it political at all? The SEAL?
No, I was on a small command, and I was really, really good in the engine room. I built a race car growing up. Basically, I rebuilt a Camaro. And because I was at a small command and I was good at what I did and we were undermanned, even if my package got pushed through and they said, hey, this guy swims really well, he runs well, he does a lot of push-ups and pull-ups, and also he passed the psych eval, which, yeah, I did, checked all those boxes. My commanding officer told my XO, and my executive officer actually was in support. But my commanding officer was like, no, we're not letting an engineer go right now. We're not letting an engineman go. So he can submit his package. We'll push it over to Buds. But even if it comes back, and they say he's approved, we're not letting him go. That was only the icing on the cake when it came to the Navy.
So a true cog in the machine.
That you weren't accepted to the SEALs? Was the icing?
I was working for a SEAL contract before I ever went in. I sold the car I said I'd never sell. Paid for LASIK out of pocket. It was on paper that I was talking with the Navy for over a year. I walk into MEPS, for the listeners, Military Entry Processing Station. It's an acronym, to get a contract, to sign up to go to boot camp and then go into BUDS prep and then go out to BUDS in San Diego and get in the cold water, which after doing cold plunges, 57 degrees in the Pacific Ocean isn't all that cold. Would have been great. I'd prepped. I'd passed the physical and the psych eval well before boot camp. And I went to contract in January 26, 2010. They say, sorry, new instruction was sent out. The rules were changed 5 days ago, and your misdemeanor arrest is no longer waiverable for this contract. So I went in like, all right, cool. I'm going to go in. I'll take whatever job they give me, get me out of town as fast as possible. And then I'll submit one after I've been on the ship for a year. And then I was getting ready to drop a package and I got told, no, that's not going to happen. And now here I am. I got a thriving coaching business. I ran a gym for 8 years that did well enough. I got a wife that loves me, a daughter on the way. Like, things worked out well. And I had a big old chip on my shoulder.
I was going to say, it's kind of good, though. You know, you found out you were a true cog in the machine and you didn't really realize, you know, how little choice you had in your direction. And now you do.
Oh, brother, it was the whole reason I got out of the Navy because I became disenfranchised with a broken leadership system and a absolutely flawed advancement structure. You have people would show up, the guys who are telling us how to do our jobs would show up half drunk in the morning with no belt on and their hat on backwards and then pick us apart for our uniforms. They get caught with hookers in their flats in Bahrain and not get in trouble for it. But then we get reprimanded for the tiniest little thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's super, I don't know, interesting is the right word or not, but to see what the Navy has been up to recently in their, I don't know, rebranding attempt, that's, they're putting out a lot of weird vibes.
Yeah. I mean, I got out in 2014 and yeah, weird vibes is accurate since then for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, the Navy has a soft spot in my heart just because my dad served, and I actually considered going into officer training school for the Marine Corps at a time that I was in between jobs and didn't know what else to do, and was just hanging out. You know, I was hanging out with a bunch of at the Marine Corps League actually, which is just a bar for veterans, kind of like the VFW. But yeah, you know, surround yourself with those people, and it's going to definitely affect your life decisions. But luckily, I did not sign up for that. And I'm here. So yeah, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, I ended up finding that car back, and my mom got her "everything happens for a reason" jab in because I had yet to believe it. But I was sitting in my barracks room in San Diego. It's like, maybe I'll just buy another IROC. And first thing I click on was my old car. So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. Wow.
Nice.
Talk about synchro.
Yeah.
Question number 8. What is your greatest fear? How did you overcome it if you have?
This is an interesting one for me because even before the Enlifted stuff, like me and fear, and before Enlifted, it was definitely a bravado thing. Like, I'm not scared of anything. I just didn't want to look at it. Now it's like, well, fear to me is an acronym. It's false evidence appearing real. How do I overcome that? What's beneath it? Like with any fear, I'm skirting around the question a bit, and I recognize that because I don't know what my greatest fear is. My greatest fear is being scared of something, I guess, and not knowing what's beneath it. Because if we can slow down, and like we talked about, quiet the noise and ask why we're scared of that or how we became scared of that and what's beneath it. And then do we have any influence on it? Can we take action? And if we can, cool, let's do it. There's no reason to be scared because either it's going to work or it's not. And if we can't, then why are we scared? It's going to happen anyway.
I appreciate how you navigated the question, answering the way you did. It reminds me of the last one that we went through with the you said you were saying that how you have trouble answering it because you're doing real time translations in your head and you're flipping the situation and it just becomes that automatic, right? I was reviewing some of the material from earlier and I don't know if I'm quite at that point yet, but that's it's a good milestone to recognize once you're just doing it in your head without having to write it down, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that, brother. It's been a journey, and Mark actually told me at the lake house one time. He's like, "Man, you and your sister, some of the fastest implementation with this work that I've ever seen." So there's a reason that I have abracadabra tattooed on my back, and that I'm so bought in. Like, this stuff makes sense to me, and I know there's people out there like, really, words, breath, it shapes our perception. It's got to be more than that. There is more. We can dive deeper. We can go into masculine archetypes and how we embody those at a base level. Just use the right words and take deep breaths, and magic stuff literally starts happening.
Yeah, with the breath work, especially, you get. I've noticed that sometimes when I'm stretching and the deeper I breathe, or sometimes I breathe and hold it, like it'll move different parts. Like I'll get different pops in my back, but you got to take the time to sit and try to do it before anything happens. But I love that what would you call that, an anagram? I don't think it's an anagram. The fear, you said false evidence appearing real?
Yep.
I haven't heard that before, so all of that, I wrote that down.
I appreciate that. I'm sure I got that from somewhere. There are a few original Chase quotes and thoughts, and there's 6 Chase originals on Spotify on my album Mystical Giants. And as far as that one, I'm quite sure I got it from somewhere. Where, I don't know.
Question number 9. What is your single greatest driving force in life, and how do you further it?
I have 2, because there's one that's always been a driving force, and there's one that'll be born in October. My single greatest driving force internally has been, and will continue to be, for lack of a better word, like alignment, like being able to move through life in a sense of peace and just being, and at the same time taking the action and doing the things. Alan Watts talks about realizing that it's all a game and still playing the game. And my greatest driving force is to see the game and to see it from the other side and to play the game like I got a cheat code.
Oh, I love that. Because everything's a game. If it's the stock market, anything, if you gamify life, it becomes fun. And adults, that's all we do. Every single endeavor, everything we do, there's a game behind it. There's a tit for tat. Even if it's just razzing your friends, during the day, it's a back and forth. You're playing.
Yeah. And well, we're playing. We understand it. There are a lot of adults out there that are so rigid that they don't understand play anymore. And if we can get back to that, the neurological benefits, the intelligence, the emotional intelligence benefits, like, go play and gamify life if you can. My other greatest driving force, my daughter Theodora, who'll be born in October, because all that she will know is that she can create her own reality. So I got a few years before she has perception of that. And by the time she has perception of it, that's as far as being a cog in the machine. She won't know any of that unless she chooses.
Yeah, give her some good base code. Most of us are still trying to rewrite what we have from our childhood.
Exactly. Well said. Give her some good base code. I'm gonna use that one.
I like your cheat code analogy too, because it goes well with the video game analogy and the simulation assumptionism that we've talked about on the show sometimes. And Yeah, the I like to think of I'm a Dungeons and Dragons fan, and there's a one class of character. This is how big of a fan I am. I don't even know what the class is, but it's a magic user, and this magic user has to read their spell books every morning in order to figure out what they're going to be able to do for the day, right? And there's some other magic users that don't have to do that, but I like to think of it in this way when I wake up in the morning and I do the my dream contract nullification and do my etheric armoring. So just two little, just life is a game, and make it fun, and it becomes fun, and the universe sees that it's fun for you, so it wants to send you more fun, and that's how we start going with the flow, right?
That's how the weird synchronicities just start happening. Things like I've been on calls with people before, and I'm like, yeah, my brand is going to grow, and this is the first time this happened. It blew my mind because this is an example. I was in a coaching program. I was like, I don't want to sell in the DMs. I want my coaching program to grow off of podcasts and speaking engagements. And we got off that group call, and I had a DM from someone. Hey, I saw you on this podcast. I'd love to chat about your program. Like it was mind melting. And now things have turned around and like happened within 60 seconds of me mentioning them, or it's real. Quantum physics has proven it's real. It's not just people who took LSD and experienced it anymore. You can still do that if you want the experience, and it's very real. It like it even leaves me reaching for words at the gravity of the gravity that we have and how we can pull things into our sphere.
Yeah, I like how you said it's not just for the people that have been experiencers like on LSD or whatever before. It's for everybody, and there's plenty of books that speak to this and speak to this these other people that aren't experiencers or don't want to do that because it's not necessary. There some few that come to mind is Tom Campbell. We just had Tom Campbell on the show. Yeah, My Big Toe trilogy. Greg Braden does. He wrote the Divine Matrix, and Dean Radin. We had Dean Radin on the show. He authored Real Magic. He actually worked for the government doing psychic espionage work. But all these books are talking. There's just so much literature and so much information now that if you ask the question, you will get an answer. It just seems to be easier to get the answer now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well said.
So, question 10: who are or were your role models and why?
You know the saying, never meet your heroes? I imagine role models were easier to maintain before the information age, when they were on magazine covers. And I've had many, at certain points in my life. And right now, and this might come across a certain way to some people, I'm still going to say it. I'm my role model. I set a vision of what I want to be 10 years out from now. And then, cool. That's my role model. How can I achieve that? Which simple actions do I take day to day to have that 10-year vision become reality in like 3 years? Because quite honestly, my last 10-year vision from a year ago is going to be reality like a year from now. It'll be 2 years end to end. And when we go back to quantum physics and the fact that this stuff's being proven, here's an interesting thought. What if setting other people as our role models is actually taking our ability to create our reality away from us? Because then we're looking at them and we want their power. And then I'm on a tangent here, and this is a organic thought. So by all means, if you guys got anything to tear it apart, have fun. But what if, as we create role models, we are in a way creating deities, the way that people do with celebrities or athletes. And if we worship them or we make them our role model, okay, now we are quite literally giving them our energy. Okay, so what better way to make ourselves our own role model than to keep all our energy on our own path and what we want to achieve?
I would agree. I mean, just not putting anybody on a pedestal is super important because you're turning them into somebody that you want to emulate like 100%, which, is you're not being you at that point, you're being somebody else.
Yeah. And I get it. I get the role model thing. And this is where my mind goes right now.
I love that your answer though is you in the future. Like somebody, I'm looking at my notes we had another Mark England referral that Austin.
Oh, Austin and I are business partners. Yeah.
His answer was very similar, but I love the idea of you using yourself in the future and then looking back to your current perspective, from a future perspective to the current perspective now, and using that perspective to discern how you're going to act in the present. Like that, it's the only other. I listen to a lot of podcasts, right? So I can't keep everything straight. But the first instance in my life that I can remember hearing about this using your future self was a meditation that Saint Ignatius of Loyola came up with called the deathbed meditation, which is exactly like it sounds. Think of yourself like on your deathbed, and then look at your life, and are you happy with it? And if not, then change it, or use it as a kind of a guidepost to, it's the same exact thing you're doing, right? You can explain it better than I can. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it.
Question number 11. What quality do you most admire in a woman?
The quality I most admire in my wife, because it's the quality I would admire in any partner, and the quality I most admire in my wife is her ability to see my power before I even saw it. She knew from the beginning that what is happening now was going to happen. I didn't see the path. I didn't see more than a gym owner who was barely scratching for groceries. She saw it, and she continues to see it. And it's, I'll go as far as, when you can, I'll use the word queen about my wife. When you find somebody like that, it's, you can quite literally, I made a post about her about a year and a half ago now. We were on vacation in Punta Cana with my parents, and somebody had taken a picture of us staring at the surf. There may or may not have been some psychedelics involved that got us down to staring at the surf. And I captioned that picture: find someone who believes in your power, and onto the world you both may lay siege. And if you are going to do anything in life, if you have a partner, you better damn well make sure that you both believe in each other. That's where it starts.
Yeah, it's especially now more than ever, I would say. Well, maybe not more than ever, but I've been seeing these memes going around saying that you're not, the dating game isn't, you're not picking, someone to like you would normally. You're picking like a post-apocalyptic partner or whatever, right? It's much more serious now, I guess, for whatever reason, right?
Totally.
And then to go back into the whole quantum thing, that I have a similar case, between me and my wife. She recognized something in me that I didn't see, but you didn't use recognize. You used the word that she saw something, but what popped into my mind was recognize, right? It was, to just break down that word. And then the re part means that it's already happened before. So we're going back into the whole quantum entanglement thing, and everything's connected.
Everything's connected. When you look at mine and my wife's life, since you opened that can of worms, we were going to a Cubs game in 2016 with her dad and my parents. And we met my second cousin, who works for the Pentagon, retired Air Force, for lunch. And her dad, he had just lost his wife about 6 months prior. So he's drinking a lot. And he just kept looking at my cousin, my mom's cousin, my second cousin, through lunch. And we leave there. And as soon as Mike's out of earshot, because he only met us for lunch, he was in town for something, He's like, I know that guy. I know him. We're like, Renzi, shut up. You don't know that guy. No, I know him. I know him. Was he ever in Korea? Renzi was in the army. He was infantry. Mike was an officer in the Air Force.
Mike, Mike, when he would go to Korea, he would go down in the tunnels and check on things. Do you know whose job it was to drive the officers down into the tunnels on golf carts? My father-in-law's, Renzi's. My second cousin and my father-in-law were on the same damn golf cart in Korea before my wife and I were ever even born. So when you talk about quantum entanglement, my friend, it's a whole nother level.
That's wild.
It's crazy. It still melts my mind every time I talk about it.
So I had just to touch back on your last or the last question and using your future self as your role model, and then taking into consideration like when we meditate, we slow down time, right? So we're playing with time, so these are Saturnian, archetypes, I guess you would say. And that just makes me think of, Doctor Strange, right? He's a Time Lord. And so these things, and then the gamification of life, and, it's just so much to go through. So it's really
so much there. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. All right. Question number 12. What is the most courageous thing you have ever done or seen in your life?
I mean, the typical most courageous thing I've ever done, join the Navy. I think there's a better answer than that, though. Most courageous thing I've done was to shut down my gym at the end of last year and to go all in on my online brand and my coaching and me as the brand. I had gotten into a spot with the gym where I thought I wanted to be the business owner, where I wanted my coaches to be the brand. And that wasn't going so well. And it wasn't going well because I didn't actually want it. Surprise, surprise. So the most courageous thing I'd done and the most freeing thing I had done in the same instance was to make the announcement in the last week of December that we'd be shutting down December 31st. That was the best drive home from work ever, because oftentimes when we do really courageous things, they create freedom. Weird thing for people to accept, but it's usually how it works in my experience.
So now that you're all of your business focuses can be found on the interwebs now, do you want to tell people exactly where they could do that?
Thank you. ChaseTolleson.com is the website, and you can see a lot of almost daily, at least 3 times a week, content of on Instagram at Coach_Chase_Tolleson. I maintain a couple of in-person clients, and they come to my basement for personal training. They're individuals who are like, "You're shutting down. I still want to train with you." The bulk of everything is online these days, and it's by and large done with my program called Primal Man Pathway, which the last question is going to be a blast. So we'll leave the Primal Man Pathway stuff for weaving it into that one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that brings us to the capstone question. Like you said, number 13, what does it mean to be a man in today's world?
This is a fun one for me because I imagine, today's world is the best part of that. Generationally speaking, even when I was 17 years old and my father-in-law, I got into a physical altercation, he more or less bullied me into fighting him because he caught me smoking, and I ended up hospitalizing him. We went to all of 2 counseling sessions together, and then went back to working on my Camaro together. And the counselor, who my mom kept going to see, was like, "Oh, well, they're doing things together. Well, that's male bonding. That's fine." And so even as recently as 17 years ago,
that was acceptable male healing patterns by professional standards. That being said, today's world, as far as I'm concerned, a man, if you want to fully embody like toxic masculinity, gets tossed around a lot. I think that's immature masculinity. Mature, balanced masculinity is a man who knows himself from the inside out. He has went within so he can most accurately create the world outside of himself. And until you do that, you're going to be looking at things outside and blaming them for how you feel on the inside. That being said, a more tactile answer, man in today's world takes care of his body in whatever way is most aligned with himself.
Man in today's world controls his inner dialogue and his inner voice so that he can.
That's the first piece in being able to accurately connect with anybody else. And connection is bred from vulnerability. And how else are you supposed to be vulnerable with individuals outside of yourself if you're not first vulnerable with yourself? And does that, takes care of his body, and does what he needs to provide for himself and those around him in a way that feeds his soul. That to me is the optimal way of being a man in today's world. And to weave that in, like I said I would, Primal Man Pathway. That's, I'm a fitness guy. I still, one of my guys in my program asked me about couplets and triplets to add mass, and he got 5 minutes worth of voice notes back because I will data dump on someone about fitness. That being said, the identity stuff, the mindset stuff that I was working on before I found Enlifted, and then the rabbit hole I dove down when I found Enlifted a couple of years ago. That's the center piece of the Primal Man Pathway. Yeah, guys come in because they see me on Instagram. I got single digit body fat and muscles, whatever. Thing with that is, though, even if that's your goal, for any goal to become permanent, there must be an underlying change in identity. So what we focus on is identity. And if you get shredded, cool. Likely you're going to get something a lot better out of it.
Yeah, back to the identity, the I am. That's the most important part. Mind over matter. It's 10% is physical, 90% mental. Like, there's tons of ways to say this, but it's really true.
We had on the Get and Lifted podcast, we interviewed a doctor yesterday, and she's a functional med doctor. Like, she went through traditional med school and whatnot, and she was asking questions, and she's really interested about the Enlifted stuff because our mind creates our health. It creates us. And that whole 90-10 thing, like, I get it. And I subscribe to it too. Like, you need that 10% of physical movement. And at a certain level, if you take a certain look at it, it might be 95-5 or 98-2, because until you become the person who does the thing, it's all just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping it sticks.
The other thing that you said in your answer that spoke to me was that to provide in a way that feeds your soul too, not just your physical bodies, but your soul, because that's the thing that continues on after we go, right? Our body goes back in the ground, but your soul keeps going.
Yep. I mean, how many guys do we know, or not? Maybe we all individually know someone, and how many men and women, how many homemakers are out there? How many people have provided for families throughout their careers, with men especially that we're talking about? How many men have been out there and they provide and they provide and they provide, and their kids go off to college, and then all of a sudden they have this noise in the back of their head because they never actually did anything for themselves. So what they do, they go buy a red Corvette and put exhaust on it and drown out that noise instead of actually addressing it. So from square one, if you can figure out a way to provide for your family and yourself that feeds your soul, you'll never need that red Corvette unless you want one because you got time for it.
And that's what's so exciting to me about future generations, because I don't think, at least the way that if I do have children, I plan on raising them in a way that they get to choose what they want to do, right? And so just taking that mindset from, as early age as you possibly can, like you're probably not going to end up going to public school, right? You're not going to do the same things that I just say that the proverbial you, right? The experiences that we had growing up, it's going to look completely different, and that's exciting to me.
It's very exciting to me too. My daughter at this point will either be homeschooled or very selectively private school. And I told Sarah, my wife, today, I'm like, the first few years of her schooling will be mind and body and learning how to move and learning how to understand herself as best she can at that age. She can learn about the judicial system later on in life. I have a book sitting on my desk here, Dumbing Us Down, The Hidden Curriculum of Modern Education by John Taylor Gatto. He was New York State Teacher of the Year 2 years in a row. The only individual to ever do it twice. He did it 2 years in a row, and he retired from public schooling and started writing books on how broken it is. And he says in that book that the entire K through 12 curriculum can be taught in like 128 school days. So there's a lot more that we can learn, a lot more that children can experience they can experience themselves to create more optimized the next generation. I mean, think about 2 or 3 generations from now with the ripples that are already being created.
Well, it's going to happen anyways. Whether the education system gets, changed or overturned, people are getting their education online. You are not exposed to a series of books and narrowed information. Now it's everything, right, wrong, a plethora. So just that in a generation or two is going to breed a whole different type of specialized human.
Well said.
Maybe if you don't mind, and if you have the time, we could pop a bonus question in on you. So you want to go off the cuff for this last one? I think it just ties in nicely to what we were just talking about.
I'm here for it.
Okay, yeah. The bonus question is: if you could give one sentence of if you could give one sentence of advice to future generations, what would it be?
Let me take a breath on this one. If I could give one sentence of advice to future generations, what would it be?
Yeah.
You know more than you're giving credit for. That would be it, because on a soul level, they do. And while there may be learning to take place, while they're embodying this, here for this experience, a lot of times kids aren't given credit for the divine knowledge that show up with. Think about the intuition that's squashed at 5 years old because Rockefeller wants a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers.
Yeah, that just speaks to, I know that what the future, I don't know what the future is going to look like. What am I saying? It just speaks to the expansiveness, the possibilities that lie in the future. There is this one documentary, I can't remember the name, but it was centered around this group of children who were like running around playing soccer blindfolded. Like they were reading books blindfolded. They were doing all these amazing things that we would think that, normally it's like, what? It's not possible, right? But to them, it was just, yeah, this is the way that, it was somewhere over in Europe, right? Where they can do this stuff, right? I don't know, but it's just super to go back to the whole quantum entanglements and how everything's connected. It's super, and then
yeah, I'm right there with you. I've said to my wife, I'm like, our daughter will levitate, and I say it like half jokingly, and I'm only half joking because like we're gonna set her up from square one. So if my daughter levitates when she's young, I won't be surprised.
Yep. And then it'll just keep the universe will just keep giving you more things to not be surprised about, quote unquote.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, sir.
All right, Chase, thank you so much for spending some time with us on Saturday. It's Saturday.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate this conversation. Appreciate you guys very much. It's been fun.
Yeah, right back at you. Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah, always.
Why is one man rich and another man poor? Why we ain't satisfied? Why we gotta have more? Why your suicide rates on the rest so high? Why I tell you the truth but you say don't lie? Why is being a good father at an all-time low? Why is it acceptable? Yo, why I don't know. Why she blame him and he blame her? It's useless. Ask yourself this question. Why you making excuses? Why do parents gotta bury their kids? Why we text and drive, not caring how scary it is? Why it's so hard to forgive and leave the past behind? And if you did, then that's divine. Why don't you help your brother when you see him fall? Why do we act like God don't see it all? Why do we call them black, them white, them Asians and use labels? Now that's racism.
I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why is there innocent people locked up for life? While some people can't say nothing nice. Why do we always gotta question what all of it means? And why won't you follow your dreams? Tell me why. The night when you took my dad, why'd you let me see my grandpa cry? And tell me why. And why do you choose to hide, even though you was born to fly? And tell me why. And why don't we turn from all the hate? And why don't we learn from all mistakes? Why do I keep on wrecking these fat beats? And teachers don't make more than professional athletes? And why? And why? And why? And why? And why? And why?
I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii. I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii. I don't wanna Hawaii. Why?
This should be considered entertainment and not therapy. We hope you benefit from our resources available at 13questionspodcast.com. Thank you for listening.